what is creative financing, y'all? I'm gonna kind of define that in just a minute. But basically, like I said, it's just doing it, getting the deals done with using less capital than what most people think is necessary. Okay. Why do you guys think that's important for investors? What do y'all think? Do more deals. Absolutely. Or maybe do a deal, right? Some of y'all know our story. We started, Michelle and I, the first house I bought in 2007 was no money out of pocket. I actually got $350 back at closing. We started with nothing, no money down, right? So it might be to do a deal, right? So that's kind of important for investors if you can't get started, because you got to have money or get creative, right? All right. I will have a quick note on due diligence and legal considerations, just kind of like just for each topic, each type of financing. I'll just kind of give you guys a little brief. But ultimately, here's what you need to know is if you're going to go into this business, you do need to be ethical. I don't advocate let me just say, don't do it. Don't lie to your sellers. Don't be shady. If there's something that you find yourself like trying to reword or bite your tongue or say say one thing, but you really mean another one, you're doing it wrong. And it's not going to be turn out well for you. Just for example, and I'll talk about it later, subject to, deals. Who's heard of subject to, doing a property subject to? Now, who knows what's happening in Atlanta, in Georgia on subject to? What? Okay, I'll explain. I don't know. You had to know. I'm just kidding. So subject to financing has been done and taught all over the country, and it's been done for years. Well, it just takes like one or two people to mess it up where what's being alleged is that the investor did not explain to the seller that property is going to stay on their credit. And so now they've been sued, and now it's gone to legislation, and now they're talking about making that a fraud case, which, I don't want to get into like what is a good crime and a bad crime, but fraud sounds bad. I don't know. It just sounds bad. I guess any crime is bad, but I don't want to be a part of that, right? So disclosures and that sort of thing. And did y'all get the email where I sent out the documents? I put that disclosure in there for that reason. Okay. If y'all didn't, please let Nicole know. I'll make sure that you guys get that email that has the disclosure in it and some samples. I didn't think I'd have time to go over it tonight, but I'll reference them. All right. So we just have to understand what is creative financing. We'll talk about the benefits, creative versus traditional. Okay. So here's just a couple of, I'll say a couple. This is most of them, I guess. Creative financing strategies, owner financing, lease options, subject to seller carryback, using partnerships and private money, and then of course installment sales contracts, contract for deed, those sort of things. Who in here has heard of installment method now? Yes, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, everybody's heard of it. So I did send out a sample contract for that, one that we did 2 years ago, for an installment contract. That is not new. That has been around for 100 years or whatever, a lot of years. The thing that makes it new is the method is being reworked and put on the acquisition side versus sales side. So we've been selling things on installment contracts for years. Never really dawned on us that, hey, we might want to think about acquiring properties that way because we didn't really need to back when we could assign contracts, okay? So we'll talk about these. I do want to talk about, anybody have any questions? Has anybody heard of another creative finance strategy? Tell me the one you asked about. Asset sales. Has anybody heard of that? Okay. That's interesting. See, you're like, man, nobody's heard of it. So asset sale is where it's owned in an LLC. The property's owned in an LLC and you buy the LLC or you assign the rights to that LLC. And here's where that comes into play. as a wholesale option, and I'm going to just touch on this because it's not in the slide, so I'll get to it right now, is if you signed a contract for ABC LLC is going to buy 123 Main Street, and then you go and you market that LLC for sale. You can say, I'm going to sell my LLC, and here are the assets involved in the LLC, right? You are tiptoeing around this law. You would have to be very, very careful about what your marketing says and doesn't say. Here's the reason I won't touch it with a 10-foot pole is because when you buy that asset, you buy everything that asset has ever touched, looked at, smelled, and been involved in. So if that asset went and took out a $50,000 credit line and you don't know about it because that doesn't show up on a credit report, and you buy that asset, yes, you got a property, but you also got $50,000 debt. You guys see how that's a little bit of an issue? So I would be very careful. I wouldn't do that. Personally, we would never buy something like that. But that's what that is. That is a way to sell property contracts by you actually sell the whole asset. Okay. Any other creative strategies that you've heard? Oh, yes. I'm so glad you asked about novations. The reason I didn't put it on here because I'm sorry, this is recorded and I might get blasted online, but it's the dumbest thing you could ever do. The way it's been taught, and this maybe it's my conservative nature of, I'm trying to leave a legacy for the kids, right? You do a novation, and essentially the way people are doing it is they're getting the seller to sign a power of attorney, right? You've heard that. So that seller signs a power of attorney, and then you go and sign to sell their property for them. And there's no attorneys in here, I don't think. But power of attorney is used so that the person that owns it, you're supposed to be watching out for their benefit. You're acting in fact for them. If that person gets mad at you, doesn't like you, comes to find out you made 30 grand when they barely paid off their mortgage, and you sign a power of attorney saying that was the best for them, that is just bad business. And you will go down, especially, the example I always think about, what about the 80-year-old grandma that has nothing left and all you do is pay off her mortgage, but you walk away with 30 grand? You think a judge is going to look kindly on you for that? So that's my issue with novations. I can't believe it's been so big and taught so to do it that way. Power of attorney is a very, very sacred document. It is a very important document. People, if you just think about power of attorney, what it's used for, all right, that doesn't make sense. So that's me on novations. And if you could convince somebody to sign a power of attorney to let you go and do business for them, why don't you just get them to do seller finance? Why don't you just get them to do something creative that has zero gray area and icky feeling? That's where I'm at on that. Who else had another strategy? Go ahead, Ant. Yeah, I love that. So it's a great way. I don't really have it put in here, but business funding, using your own credit, perfect. Rock.
He has people sell mercy pops was made susceptible to resuscitation.
Exactly. Yeah, and think about this. The big thing is, and this is, and I'm not trying to take sides on it, but the real estate commission has always looked out, and they're set out to look out for the homeowner and to help them not get taken advantage of. That's why agents have to have continuing education. That's why they have to have a fiduciary responsibility. Commercial agents, it is the wild, wild west. So you're selling commercial property, you're on your own. And so that's why they have attorneys. Yeah. So commercial property, you can play in that place, play about sandbox, whatever you want, and you'll be fine. Yes, sir. Did you? Oh, I thought you had. You good? Yeah. Uh huh. Yeah, and Gary's an attorney, and there's a term for it where if you use someone's power of attorney for your gain, it is bad news in the legal system. Like, yeah, exactly. It's probably fraud is the word for it. Yeah. Any other one that I have mentioned?
By work have an option agreement, like everything called Bernie, that asks you on the option you probably realize.
Um, so the limited power of attorney is still the same. It's a power of attorney. You should be acting on their behalf to sell. If you do an option agreement, if you go to exercise your option, they are contractually obligated to come and sign that document at that price. You're not changing any contract, so that would be fine because you're not going and making money after they sign a power of attorney. Well, that's totally different, right? And that was where? Here? North Carolina. Okay, yeah. So I'm going to hit on lease options in just a second. Well, I can hit on it now. Option is a contract. Option equals contract. That means you're selling a contract. You don't have ownership of that property. So it's not equitable interest. Right, because you're foreclosing on the option. And you're evicting on a lease. It's two separate documents. I have a video on that. If you guys want to go back, we went way deep with attorneys. I think in here, maybe last year, but we went real deep on that where it's lease is separate. You can actually kick them out, but if they have an option, that option is still valid. Yeah. No, it's just a contract that you agreed to sell to them for a price. That's the same as a purchase agreement. Go watch the video. Yeah. Yes. We'll get to that. Mm-hmm. Any other one that we didn't talk about?
Well, so
You can what? If you own it, you can do whatever you want. Yep. Yeah. So I asked the question because there are other things. There are other creative ways. There are other examples and strategies that maybe I didn't hit on and maybe we haven't even thought of yet because that's why they're called creative. You just make them out of thin air sometimes, which is go watch what's the movie about 2008 crash where they just made this stuff up out of thin air. All right, so number one. So I'm going to go through these pretty quick because there's a handful here, and I want to make sure that we can get to questions and stuff like that. So owner financing. Owner financing is the easiest to do everything with. And pretty much everything on most of these fall under some sort of owner financing. The owner is there, and they're going to finance it to you through some sort of terms, okay? So how does that work, and how does it benefit you? It works by negotiation. You found a deal, you've identified a seller that needs to sell, wants to sell, and is willing to take terms. So when we talk to these sellers, we have a cash offer X, or our terms, we actually can pay about 10 or 15% more, and we just come up with the terms later. We find out if they are interested in making a little bit more money over time. How do you guys think that benefits the seller? 10 or 15% more. Sometimes it's good for their tax situation, right? Sometimes it's good for their estate planning situation. The example I sent out, the HUD that I sent out in the email, was a estate planning move for that seller. He wanted to make sure that there were payments coming to his kids for years on. Once he's passed, or once he's, doesn't need the mailbox money anymore, he set it up so we're making payments to his kids. Okay. Typically, your terms are going to be what fits for your business and that seller. The cool thing is you get to negotiate how long you take to pay it back. You get to negotiate when you start payments. So you could say, well, we'll start payments in 6 months, which is one we're in right now. We'll start payments in 6 months because this property needs a whole bunch of work and I won't be able to rent it out until 6 months from now. Mr. Seller, are you cool with that? Sure. You can also negotiate, is this going to be 30 years, 10 years, just 2 years, or maybe 6 months, right? You can negotiate those terms. You also get to negotiate rates. So interest rate. Kimberly, what's my favorite interest rate? 0. We actually did get pushback one time because the guy sent it to a CPA, and there is some thing in some sort of law that it's got to look real, so it doesn't look like money laundering type stuff. And I'm sure that that's legit. So he went to like 3% or something like that. So you don't have to pay people interest. If you just come to a price and you're like, I'll pay you $100,000 and I'll pay you over the next 10 years, and you just split it into 10 years, 120 payments. Okay. So payments, rate, the start date, the end date, all of that is negotiable. And if you like finance, or if you don't like finance, use a calculator, or find somebody that does like finance. You can literally go online and do calculators where you can make the payment, whatever you want. What's that? Y'all seen the car commercial where you can buy the car, you slide the payment up and down? You can do that. You can do that with your house and just do that. Move it wherever makes sense for your business. If you know you can rent it out for $1,000 a month, well, you want to make sure your payment's not more than $500. So, Mr. Seller, this is where I gotta be. How can we work this out? I'll pay you longer. I'll pay you a balloon, whatever. Okay. So, owner financing. Why would that be good for you as a buyer? Yeah, you can get way better terms and cash flow it and get deals that maybe you couldn't close any other way. Right? Maybe you can't pay cash because they need too much, but I could pay terms. Right? You can negotiate it. I didn't remember, but the HUD I sent out, I looked back at it and I was like, why in the world did the seller brought money to the table? He paid his taxes, the prorated taxes. I paid his closing costs, but he owed $6,000 worth of taxes, and he paid them. He didn't get any money when he sold his property to me. I was like, wow, that was pretty cool. But we still brought money. We paid closing costs. All right. Lease options. So we kind of hit on the definition and the mechanics of lease options. There's a lease. You're renting the property with an option to buy it at a given point or within a given time period at a given price. Okay? The thing to remember with lease option is what we just talked about, is it's two separate entities, not entity, but documents. So you're doing a lease and then you're doing an option, and you want to record that option. Don't just put it in your safe at your house. Why would you not want to just do that if you're the buyer? Yeah, that seller can go sell it. Yeah, you would have a legal claim, but good luck. That's a lot of work to try to get a property back from somebody. That's right. If it's not recorded, nobody knows about it. Okay. So you've got to get that option recorded. The beautiful thing about lease option is it's an option to buy the property. Remember, we were talking about how to get these deals with less capital involved. If you're renting it and you find out that, you know what, I made a terrible decision, I cannot sell this house, I can't renovate this house, whatever, you don't have to exercise your option. Yes, you'll lose your money that you put down or whatever, but you can get yourself out of a bad deal or renegotiate. Okay, there's a good chance that you could renegotiate, especially if you got good rapport with that seller. Okay, so it's really cool things. Structuring the deal for lease option, it's really looking at, you have to run your numbers. You have to know what you can rent it for, or how are you going to make your money monthly as you rent from them. Again, you're doing it with the owner, so you don't have to pay them every month. Your rent could be, I'll pay you $1,000 to rent it for 6 months. You could do that. That's the beautiful thing of creative financing, is you are able to structure that deal. Okay. But you got to make sure you can afford to keep the lease up, or they will boot you out. Advantages for the investors. Again, the biggest advantage for that is you're able to get an option. The option allows you to get contracts, get deals that you may not have been able to do any other way. You may not be able to pay all cash and risk all that cash for a deal that maybe is a slim margin. Okay. Now, I do have an issue, and I did ask the attorney before coming here about selling on the MLS lease option. And that is the issue, is that it's still just a contract. So if you go market that, you're in violation of that new law. So that is a tough place to be, because typically you do the lease option so that you have time to find your end buyer. I think that there would be, you would have to build that in with your seller to figure out how in the world would you end up selling it. This is where it becomes disclose, work with the seller. If they're willing to sign a contract for you to buy it in a year or two, then go in and figure out how you can own it, which is what we'll talk about with installments. If you're already making rent payments, why not make them installments? All right. Subject to deals we talked about the subject to. Pretty much everybody in here has heard of subject to. I sent out an option, or a disclosure document for the subject to deals. You must disclose everything in writing, big, bold letters, to that seller, that property is going to be on their credit. That property is going to be still there until you pay it all off. And you want to make sure that it is big, bold letters, and they sign it, that they agree that you're making payments for them on their behalf, and the property's still on their credit. Why do you want to do that? What? Because Atlanta, yeah. Because you want it to be super clear out front, y'all. This business, if you are open and honest and clear with your sellers, they'll work with you. They're calling you because they need help through a situation. They're open to creative ideas. A lot of times that's how the conversation comes up. It's like, hey, Mr. Seller, yeah, I know you called us. I see that we have an issue with this house, whatever, it's falling apart, you owe too much, whatever, foreclosure. We have a program. We pay cash for houses. These are the words we use. We pay cash for houses, but the cash offer on this price is probably going to be too low. It won't pay off your mortgage or whatever. It's not enough to get you what you need. But we do have some other options where we can do terms. We can actually take over your mortgage, or you can finance it to us for a little bit of time while we work on it. Right? If you give the seller their options and you work with them, they're going to be okay with it if they need your help. If they don't need your help, they're going to hang up with you or tell you to leave the kitchen, and they're going to call an agent and they're going to put it on the MLS. You guys get that? So you want to be there as their helpful guide to getting their property sold efficiently. Okay? It doesn't always mean that they have to close in 15 days. That's a misnomer that's been sold all across YouTube, that the only thing wholesalers are good at, or investors are good at, are buying quick. That's not true. Not at all. Sellers, they come to us and they I'd say probably always take less money. And we've all heard, hey, money is the number one thing. No, it's not. If you can solve their problems, they will work with you. Okay? All right. Installment sales contracts. Y'all heard of this, right? the concept, let me just explain the concept. Who in here has bought a car through financing? Yes, most people. When you left the dealership, did they give you a title? No. Who has the title? The bank. But you own the car, right? Who said no? You do own it. Can you paint your car? But you don't have the title. Can you put new carpet? Can you change from carpet to leather? Can you do that? Yeah. Could you, if you wanted to, install kitchen cabinets in the trunk of your car? You absolutely could. But you don't have the title. Why don't you have the title? Because you haven't paid them off yet. You haven't paid the last installment. You haven't paid the last installment. All right. So the installment sales contract, y'all, is the same concept that you're entering in with a seller. They are your bank. They are going to hold on to that deed. They don't actually sign it completely over to you. But going back to the car example, what happens after you make that first installment payment? Drive it off a lot. You could put a for sale sign on it. You could even put it on the MLS. If they would let you put a car on the MLS. You can put it on online, anywhere you want. If you do, and deposit, not escrow. Very different. If you put a deposit down, your first installment is what it would say on your contract. When you put that on there, that is equitable interest. You now can do what you want with it because you have begun buying the property. You are now an owner. Okay? You can go to it's yours. It is yours. Okay? So that's installment contract. That is why you're hearing so much about it now, because as an acquisition strategy, it really changes the game for you old W words, you new deal finders, that you can actually get in and actually own and control the property for way less money than you could before. Okay? Now, what seller in their right mind would do that? The same ones that were selling to the wholesalers before. Because they have a problem and you have a solution. The same ones that would do a lease option, the same ones that would do a subject to, the same ones that this is literally owner financing. This is all it is. It's the same sellers.
Foreclosure home, if they have, say, care, going to auction, how would you work that?
That they're foreclosing on an unpaid mortgage. If you don't get that caught up, they will still foreclose on an unpaid mortgage.
So you can't do it.
You can, but you better move it before the bank gets caught up. Right. And that's your first deposit. That's your first deposit. Yeah. Yep.
Se the back the people separate they can't pass it, but you know they have money.
Yeah.
But no, I bullshit deal, right? I shit deal with that.
They won't, after they foreclose it, it's in a whole nother world, and they don't care. It's gone to their asset department, their REO department. So it's gone, right? Just go ahead and count it gone. It's not like the old days where you could call the guy at the bank down the street and the guy's like, yeah, it's sitting on my desk. What do you buy it? It doesn't do that anymore. But you can stop it, right? You get into a short sale. We just talked about this. If you want to talk about short sales, we can help you. Like we have the whole packet on how to do a deal with a short sale. Okay. We just did one. They got those sellers done with that one. And so that is, if it's imminent on that foreclosure and it's coming down to the courthouse, you either are paying the difference and getting them to reinstate that loan, or you have to get it moved before they foreclose. Okay. They're still coming to take it. All right. So that's the installment sales contract. That's land contract. There's another name for it. I'm blanking. There's a few names for it. But that's that in a nutshell. And yes. Oh yeah.
Hobbies. Parisian work this essere years. Ovviamente sa me che passa patti fine.
Yeah. So risks, right? Never pay the seller if they have a mortgage. Let me rephrase that. Never pay the mortgage payment to the seller if they have a mortgage. If you're paying them more than the mortgage amount, you split it into two. One goes straight to the mortgage company, and you would want to make sure you have access. So you want an authorization to talk to that mortgage company, and you know what that is. So you pay the money straight to the mortgage company, and you pay them their overage. You don't want to be you don't want them to be responsible for paying your mortgage. That's subject to, because if you keep that mortgage in place, you're kind of working two at once. There's something else that goes along with that. What if there's some legal precedent to this, but it is a question. Our team kind of went through with our attorneys on this. What if that seller, you're now in an installment sales contract, what if they just decide not to pay the IRS for the next 2 or 3 years? What happens to every piece of property they own, they have their name on? They get a lien. They get a tax lien. What happens if you're buying that piece of property in an installment sale? It's going to get messy. So there is some legal precedent. There's some cases that go to show if you went into the installment sales contract prior to the lien, that you can basically go to the government and tell them, show them all your documents and get it removed. It's a process, obviously, if you're dealing with the IRS. So not something you necessarily want to do if you can avoid it. That goes to trying to get all of these, subject to installment sales contract, lease option. You want them to be short. Why do we want them to be short? 6 months, a year. Why do we want to keep them short? Yep. Give me all the money now. If somebody else's name pops in there, it's called a due on sale clause. Doesn't happen often, but it's possible. Tax liens, stuff happens. People, unfortunately, they do die. And if their name is on it and your name is on it, now probate is on it. These are just challenges. These are things, these are hurdles that you would then have to pay an attorney to help you get through, right? And owner finance, where you buy it, you own it, they're just the bank, eliminates the messy stuff later down the road. Okay? All right. Seller carryback, private money, this business funding would kind of go into this. It's kind of like it is creative, I guess, because most people just don't know about it. But y'all, seller carryback happens all the time in commercial space. Just about every deal, there's seller carryback. Any business that gets sold, almost every business gets sold, the seller of the business carries some note back. What that means is, if you go to a bank and you have to they say, yeah, I'll finance you this deal, but you got to put 20% down. You then could go back to the seller and say, hey, seller, my bank says I have to put 20% down. I was thinking I wasn't going to have to put so much down. I got to do all this renovation. I really, this is going to be tight for me. I really want to buy this deal. Would you be willing to hold 20% back as a note, and I'll pay you over time, or I'll pay you when the flip sells, or I'll pay you when I refinance? Does that make sense? Do you guys see how that could be beneficial for everybody involved? Has anybody thought of that before? A few of you? Is this brand new to some of y'all? I guess that's why it's creative, right? This isn't mainstream. This isn't traditional. This isn't what's like talked about and told all over. But it's a lot easier to get that seller to carry 20% as owner financing versus all of it, 100% for owner financing. You see how that goes? So it's a little easier to digest for the seller because they can still get 80% of their money up front. If that covers their needs, then everybody's happy, right? Uh-oh, who turned the fan on? You turn the fan off? Well, jump on me. Don't have the dust cover on my thing here. Partnerships. Partnerships. This is what we're here doing, guys. Somebody has the deals, somebody has the money. Get together and do the partnerships. Which part?
For then we're buying a deal, he blows a deal. It's like, hey, we have found deal, consultant fee. Is that how it works?
So the beautiful thing is you can make it work however you want to make it work. So, once you own it, yeah, you can do whatever you want.
No, I mean, like, how do you leave out of Ryer compensate something like that?
She's speaking in context of
Of a wholesale, yes. If you go and do that outside of closing, so you're not going to put any assignment when you go buy it, because the attorneys would want to do some sort of outside contract. The issue would be is when there's payment on a HUD for an assignment fee or a consulting fee, not happening. You do it outside of closing, and the big thing with groups like this, getting connected, being face to face with people, you can make deals happen, right? You might find a deal and they could assign it to you right now. It's not like you marketed it to the whole world, but if you got in front of a judge, they might say, well, how did you find out about it? And, that could be a little murky. So you would want to make sure that you are doing your consultant fee as like a partnership outside of closing of, hey, we work together. We've done deals together. Jason's really good at finding deals, and he's our partner. He's our bird dog partner, and y'all have something set up outside. Okay. I am so pumped about this law hitting South Carolina because you know what? None of those new wholesalers fresh out of college, moving from Philly, they're not coming from Philly to come here. They're going to stay in Philly. He's thinking about leaving when he found out about this law. Our competition is going to shrink. That's right. We clap for that. Yes, we can. Those investors, those virtual wholesalers and stuff, they don't want to mess with this, y'all. It's difficult, which gives opportunity for you all right here in this room to take advantage and really build your business at a time where there's a gap in the market space. These sellers still need your help. All these businesses and wholesaling throughout this country were created because there's a gap in the marketplace. Real estate agents are not filling that gap. They are not helping these sellers. We are, you are, and if you continue to do that, there is a business in it for you, and there's some really, really happy sellers in it for you. Ted was just telling about a seller that he worked with a couple years ago, called him back and said, hey, you were so great to us. We want to do it again. Super happy sellers. Marissa and Kimberly, 25% of the business comes from repeat sellers because they're so happy that we were able to help them out of a situation. So you can help people and you can build a business, y'all. Do not sit on the sidelines. Right now is the time to go do it. I will tell you, I'm not going to go into negotiation strategies. We will have to do that another day. We do have some of this slide and some negotiation strategies in our learning center. If that's something that a lot of you might want to start there. It is a membership for the learning center and the group for that, but it's all online. And so all these trainings that I put them in there. And so you can have that as a resource. Risks. There's a lot of risk in any business. There's risk in real estate. You guys know that. We talk about that a lot. I suggest you talk to an attorney when you guys start doing this. Have the attorney write up the contract. Tell them what you want in it, They will write it up and they will disclose it and share it with the sellers so everybody's on the same page. If you are trying to hide something, you're doing it wrong. Okay? There's no reason to hide it. There's still a business in being completely transparent.
Thanks for listening to the REI Deal Finders Podcast. You can find out more and apply to be a part of the REI Deal Finder community at reidealfinders.club.